house sitting webinar series. My name is Thomas Mason, and I'm just going to take a few moments here to allow all of you from around the world to connect to our Google Hangout. Great to have all of you. We've got a really international panel again for you this afternoon. So in a couple of minutes, we will introduce the panel and we'll begin our discussion. After that. So as you join from around the world, I would like just to now begin to introduce some of our panelists who will be joining us this afternoon. The topic for this afternoon is how to plan and sustain your long-term travel. Now, long-term travel for most people is probably just a dream, a holiday. It's something you go on, if you're lucky, 2 weeks a year, if you can get the time off. However, for some of the creative people on our panel this afternoon, house sitting and travel have become one thing that enables people to extend their holiday to the extent they sometimes can't tell the difference between when they're working and when they're on holiday. And just coming into the focus of my Google Hangout at the moment, I've got a couple of those long-term travelers. I have Florian Schumann and his partner Jenny Gibbons. There they are waving to us. They are long-term travelers and house sitters, professionals who took a grown-up gap year. So we're going to be finding out some of their secrets. Also on our panel this evening, very important, we have from Aviva Insurance, Paul Charlton, Senior Trading Manager. So we're going to hear from Paul what it means actually when you go around the world and somebody else comes to your house, and then you let someone into your house and you go around the world. So what's going to happen there? What are the insurance implications? So Paul, we look forward to hearing from him. And then we have a couple of providers of services. One of them is our host, Lamia Walker. She is from House Sit Match. House Sit Match is one of the UK's main house sitting websites that brings together people looking to go off on holiday and travel the world, and people looking for people to come into their homes. House Sit Match doesn't just operate in the UK, but around the world. And then also we have a late addition to our panel, and we're very welcome. We're very excited to have her. She is Marianne Ferrari, and she is from a site called Nomador. So I think the first question I was going to ask Marianne was how to say house sitting in French, but maybe is Nomador, is this the word, Marianne?
In French, we usually use home sitting. The French speak about home sitting more easily than house sitting, perhaps for phonetical reasons.
Right, yes. So I think the purpose of this webinar then, it's all about how to make somebody's house, how to take a house and make it a home. And we have a couple of, I think we'll start with the travellers. We have a couple of seasoned travellers. So Florian, could you tell us then about long-term travel and how you've managed to make this a reality?
Well, we don't just do it as a seasonal thing, actually. We do it full-time. So a couple of years ago, we came across house sitting, and we literally just decided to sell everything we own except for a few things that could fit into a backpack and live off house sitting. So we find different house sit assignments and use that to travel the world.
Great. So are you on a house sit at the moment?
We are, yes. We're actually in a house sit near Basingstoke in England at the moment. Right.
And do I detect a German accent there? Is that right?
Yes, I'm Irish raised, German born, just to make it
right. Very good. So maybe you could just give us a quick idea of where you've been in the last 12 months.
Well, to be honest, we've decided to spend the first year, or most of the first year, traveling around Britain, just because originally we thought we'll go around Europe, but then we figured that it would be a shame to leave Britain and not really see any of Britain. So we've actually been all over. So we've been all over England, we've been around Wales, we've been around Scotland, outside of Britain, we've been to Luxembourg, Paris, and Germany so far. And now we're back here for the winter months.
And I think probably one of the first questions for most of the people joining us this afternoon and this evening is, how on earth can you afford this? Is this costing you a fortune in fees, in agency fees, in hotel rooms, or are you making it work?
It's actually cheaper than our normal lifestyle that we had prior to this.
Right.
When you think of all the costs you have with, your own rent, your own utility bills, council tax, things like that. Because we're doing this permanently, we don't actually pay rent anywhere. So in house sitting, we generally do, a few weeks to a few months, and that means we look after somebody else's home and pets most of the time. And in exchange, we don't pay any of the bills, rather the homeowner does that themselves. As a result, of course, we don't charge for our service. And that means that we can actually get by roughly a third of what we used to get by. So, we figured out between us, we can get by quite easily between £400 and £500 a month. And most of our income for that comes from online work. I'm a photographer myself, so I sell something online. We own a couple of websites that go through affiliate programs, and that.
Right, I think Florian was saying he was doing so well. He can't spend any more money on broadband, because I think we briefly lost him there. But Lamia Walker has stepped up onto the breach. Lamia Walker, you join us from House Sit Match. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and how you help people to sustain a long-term travel dream?
Well, there are many sitters who come to us asking for long-term house sits, naturally, because it can save an enormous amount of money, as Florian and Jenny were indicating. And the way we try to help, as I'm sure Marianne will explain also, is that we offer house sits of varying lengths. And they are offered in a number of countries. So depending on where you want to travel, like Florian and Jenny, in the UK or in Europe or further afield, maybe in Australia or New Zealand, we have house sits that can accommodate. Sometimes the homeowners want them to look after their pets. Sometimes there are a lot of pets. We have people who have maybe 9 or 10 dogs on our list. It's remarkable. And sometimes there are no pets at all. The house sitting is really about looking after the property and maintaining the garden. Security is an issue. So there are various reasons why people would ask house sitters to move in, but we do get a lot of requests for long-term house sits.
Right. Well, Paul, that comes to you there. Paul, so Paul is from Aviva. Now, what I'm very interested to know here, Paul, is what are the implications if you are leaving your house or if you're going to somebody else's house? Often we think that, or the impression might be that the insurance terms and conditions can be a little bit restrictive, or there's something we haven't thought about. How can we make sure we do this in the right way and we protect our home and our possessions?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Thompson. The key to all of this is communication. And it's essential that the homeowner communicates with their insurers, lets them know exactly what they're doing, what their plans are in terms of having people to come and house sit, and then negotiate with that insurer in terms of what needs to be done. So, for example, if there are items of valuables in the house, what's the arrangements for that? If the house sitters are going to be looking to use the facilities in the house, for example, a car or whatever, what arrangements are being made? So in the first instance, it's the house owners who have to make sure that they've linked in with the insurers, communicated with the insurers, and if need be, engage with an insurance broker if their existing insurer has some reservations or some issues. So the first thing is the homeowner. The second thing is the home sitters, and I'd certainly recommend the home sitters look to have personal liability insurance, because as a home sitter, if you're going into someone else's property and you're going to be responsible for that property, or indeed, as Lana said earlier on, a number of pets, there could well be a legal liability which could attach. So, as a house sitter, I'd certainly recommend you go to an organisation, or you go to an insurance broker, or you go to one of the organisations that are on the webcam this evening to talk that through, because you certainly need to make sure that you're aware of the eventualities and you go in with your eyes open.
Right. Sometimes when I've looked at my own insurance policies or my friends and family, 30 days seems to be a key number after which a normal travel insurance or a normal home insurance would require some additional communication. Is that a number that resonates within the industry? Is that when we need to start thinking about special arrangements?
It can vary from insurer to insurer. 30 days is a normal yardstick for an occupancy, but it's not a yardstick for other people coming in to look after your home. So I wouldn't look at that as an issue on 30 days. In terms of travel insurance is very different. There are now specialist travel insurers and specialist travel firms and specialist travel products which will enable people to actually travel for on the long term. But again, it's about communication. It's about getting involved with either the insurer or an insurance broker. And I can't stress enough, for insurance, if you take nothing away from this session this afternoon, is the need to actually go through in detail what you, if you're a homeowner, or indeed if you're a house sitter, you're actually doing, just to make sure that the insurance areas are covered.
Great. And you represent Aviva. Is there anything that Aviva specifically does for people in the home sitting arena?
Well, we work through an insurance broker with Lamia and her company, but we would certainly encourage people to come and talk to us, and through our insurance brokers who deal with us to discuss their requirements.
So communication there is clearly key.
Absolutely, yeah, and so often that's where it falls down. So often people either don't think that they're going to be able to actually obtain the correct cover, or don't think that the insurer will respond, or indeed they think, oh well, that's too difficult, I'm not going to do it. I really would stress that people just need to actually let the insurer, or if their insurer can't handle it or isn't able to handle it, then go to an insurance broker, because there are a number of insurance brokers who will help. Great.
And Lamia, you there as somebody who has that arrangement with Aviva, what advice would you give to people thinking about their insurance needs, and how do you help your clients?
What we like to do is we like to understand about the specific situation. So if, for example, we have a number of retired people who are looking to travel the world for the first time, they're child-free, they've paid up their mortgage, it's time to travel. But they're in their 60s, and it's not always easy to find insurance. So what we try to do is understand where they're going, their age, their medical situation, and then we talk to our broker and we can make that arrangement. So the most important thing is, as Paul has said, is the communication. Tell us the information and we can then share it with our broker and make the arrangement that way.
Right. And going over to France then, is the situation any different for French people looking to get into the house sitting business? And that's the question for Marianne.
Can you repeat the question?
So looking at insurance, l'assurance, I believe it's called, what are the best advice for people in France about how to get insurance for home sitting?
In fact, they are quite similar to what has been said. It's all about communicating with your insurance and your broker. I reckon that the insurance companies will have probably to find new solutions, international solutions, because some countries are more difficult to deal with than others, like Canada, for instance. It's a bit more complicated.
Right.
The warranties vary a lot from one country to another one. In France, well, in fact, you will find that in the frequently asked questions at the bottom of our website. Our advice is that if you're an international house sitter, to speak with the homeowner, of course, and the homeowner can ask his broker to. I'm sorry, the language barrier is difficult for me tonight.
No, we're hearing you speaking beautiful English. Please.
To find a special arrangement just in case something happened.
Right.
Because of the house sitter, which can happen sometimes. It's better to think about the risks before.
Right. So maybe, Marianne, then you can just tell us a little bit about your business, what Nomador is, and the countries in which you operate. You've already mentioned France and you've mentioned Canada.
Well, yes, we are French, as everybody can hear. We are newborn. The platform is a newborn. The way we operate is new, but we are not new to house sitting because we have been running a French agency for 8 years now, which is a leading agency, and an agency has a very different way of working. So we had been wanting for a long time to launch a platform system to open the solution to more people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people cannot afford to pay fees to an agency.
Right, yes.
I don't know if you have agencies in a lot of other countries.
Well, maybe Lamia, you can go on board and tell us a little bit about how your model works. I believe that House Sit Match, you pay a one-off fee per year, and then essentially you're free to do as many house sits as you like. Is that right?
Well, in principle, yes, that is the correct story. So we have 3 levels of registration for house sitters and homeowners, and it is an annual subscription fee, which varies in, between £35 for a small advertisement all the way to £75 for a large advertisement for the whole year. We also have a private client service, which we provide when people want a special selection of sitters, and so we have a scalable service. So if you like, we look at the world the other way around from Marianne. So we started with our platform, which enables house sitters to have as many house sitters they like for the annual registration, and homeowners to connect with as many sitters as they want for the same story. But we also now provide a private client service for the special selection that is required in some instances. So that's how we work.
So could you give us an example then, Lamia, of a client who's required a little bit more work at the start, but has actually found a really interesting house-sitting solution at the end?
Well, we've had a few recently, but one in particular, one of my favorites, was it was a horse stables in northern France owned by Scottish people, and they have a wonderful collection of horses. They're dressage champions, and they wanted a couple who were obviously passionate about riding and equestrian competition, but equally they wanted them to be independent financially. They wanted digital nomads. So that's quite a list of requirements, and they had to be available for up to a year. So, you know, I had a challenge to try and find a couple.
Well, I think we might have a couple of digital nomads here this evening. There they are. There they are in Basingstoke. Florian and Jenny. Question 1, what is a digital nomad? And question 2, are you digital nomads?
I would say we are, yes. Yeah, digital nomad basically means you work online, hence the digital, and nomad is obviously somebody who travels around, so basically exactly what we're doing. So yes, definitely, we're definitely digital nomads.
Yeah.
And Marianne, I guess you're a digital nomador. Yeah. Great. So back to the security angle then. We've already established that communication is absolutely key here. But the other question then for you, Paul, is what tips do you give to people when they're actually leaving their house on the security side? Are there special things that they need to do to ensure that their personal possessions are safe and that they've secured their home properly?
Okay, yeah. I guess I'm going to come back to the communication bit, because first of all, the key is the house sitter discussing with the homeowner what use they want of the house. There are some obvious things. Obvious things, if you've got jewellery, if you've got very personal items, then you're clearly going to want to do something with that. And from a security viewpoint, if you've got a safe, then obviously that's one route. Or if not, if you want to take, if you've got your own personal jewellery and valuable items, then you clearly want to actually remove those from the property, I would think. But the next thing is so what do you want the house sitter to do? Because you may want the house sitter to actually help you with the protection of the building and the property. So again, it's about engaging and understanding the purpose. What's the purpose of the house sit? As Lama has said, and the wonderful example of the horses. If the purpose is to look after the property and to look after items in the property, then that's a very different approach than rather than just looking after a mothballed building. So again, it comes back to the purpose. What's the purpose of the house sit? What's the purpose of the homeowner? What do the homeowners want from the house sitters?
Right. At this point, I'd just like to say to all of you all around the world, if you have questions, a few of them we've had in advance, and there's people coming through now. We have a question from Paul in a second. So this question for you then, Paul, is what are the costs for personal liability insurance? Is this something that you think people need?
What's the cost? Well, I can't tell you. It depends on the length of time that that the individual is going to be house sitting. But it's in terms of value for an individual from an insurance company. You're not talking thousands of pounds. You're talking hundreds of pounds. But it would depend on the insurance company. It would depend on the length of time you're going and what you're actually going to be doing. But it's not thousands of pounds. It's in the range of hundreds of pounds.
Right. And Florian and Jenny, Paul mentioned there that it's important to have a good dialogue before you start a house sit. Could you just give us a bit of advice from your end about the types of conversations you have with the house sitters, with the homeowners?
Well, very often we would actually arrange a Skype call before we have the house sit, or we'll arrange to be there a day early, and we will actually discuss in detail about what they want done, how they want the house protected, is it alarmed, do they want us there all day. It basically goes through various different details, and we do find that it's different with every homeowner. But we like to give a little bit of time in between discussions and actually starting the house sit, so that if they can think of anything else, that we go through it then.
Right. Great. And just saying, if anyone else has any questions, there should be a little box at the bottom of your Google Hangout screen. So please send your questions to us there, and we will endeavour to get them in there. So Lamia Walker, a question for you then is what sort of recommendations do you have before a house sit? For instance, are there any contracts that take place, and is that something that you're able to help with?
We always recommend that whatever you agree verbally, you really should write down and agree in a written format. It's just best practice in all ways, in any kind of business or even a personal sort of commitment. So what we tend to do is we offer special house sitting agreements that we've prepared with lawyers in country that you can use as a template, really as a guide for what is appropriate or within tolerance levels within that country.
Right, that's right. So is that a template, Florian or Jenny? Do you put things in writing? So for them, it's more of a Skype call. Right. Okay. And what about Marianne over in France? Do you also recommend a contract or a written agreement between your clients?
Definitely, yes. It is important, not only from a legal point of view, but because it's also a way of clarifying various points. And the contracts, house-sitting contracts that you can find on the web or on different websites, are sometimes different, but they all have a reason for being.
Right.
Most of them have been prepared with lawyers, and they can be. You can also add a home book, and the more details you share before, the more instructions you leave before you leave, the better the sit will be.
Great. And also, Paul mentioned that sometimes the house sitter is expected to perform certain duties at the home. I'm wondering, Florian and Jenny, what sort of duties you've been asked to perform, and actually, do you ever receive payment for those duties? Have you ever been on a house sit where actually there's been a bit of a paid job element to it? I think we've got a few problems actually with Florian's internet connection. So I'll put the same question to Lamia. Do you find that these are generally unpaid house sits, or does money sometimes change hands?
Money does sometimes change hands, although it has to be said that the majority tend to be unpaid. Just as Florian and Jenny explained, it's an exchange of services. It's a collaborative arrangement where you house sit and you have rent-free, bill-free accommodation. And then you take care of whatever's required, the property, the garden, the pets, and so on, in exchange. However, some people do have very specific requirements. Maybe there's a very large garden or several vegetable gardens. And so often there may be a payment in kind at the end in acknowledgement of the extra services and the extra hard work, because it can be quite time-consuming depending on the requirement. There is, for example, one property in Cyprus that I'm aware of that we have on our list, where it's actually a group of cottages. And so the people who are house sitting need to review the property. They need to manage the property in the absence of the owners. So that's a serious job. And there is a payment there. So we have examples where there are payments, but most of them are unpaid.
Right. And if I'm looking to go out and join your website and find out more about it, where do I go and how do I get started?
Well, our website URL is housesitmatch.com. So you can put it into any browser and will come up. And we have many pages that give you information about existing house sits, existing house sitters, but also how to go about it. There's a checklist before you start, a very easy step-by-step guide. There's also a guide as to how to complete your profile. And if all else fails, you're welcome to contact us. We have live chat on the homepage, and we'll happily answer any questions as you ask them. Great.
And I believe there may be a special promotion today for people who've joined this webinar to come and get involved with House Sit Match. Will you maybe tell us a little more about that?
Yes, well, Thomas, I'm so glad you asked. There is a 20% off from now until the end of Friday, midnight on Friday, 20% off any registration on the site. And I'll be posting the code very shortly on the chat.
Right. Now we look forward to hearing that one. Marianne, I think it's only fair to ask a similar question to you. How can people get involved in your website and become a member? What's the best process?
It's very easy. We tried to make the website easy to navigate, and there is a discovery option which allows both homeowners and house sitters to register for free,
right.
At least for a while. The only thing which is very important, and all the more important since this discovery option exists, is that we want people to build a trust profile That is very important. We need people to accept to show a proof of identity or a proof of domicile, and we have a strong moderation. We always have some people who are trying to take care of the quality of the exchanges. So you connect on the website and you click on the register button, and it's all explained, and in better English than mine.
It looks very good. I like that your homepage. You've got a dog by a swimming pool there. For anyone who didn't catch it, I believe that the website address for that is Nomador. So that's NOMADOR.com.
.com. That's right.
Jenny and Florian, I believe that you are back in Basingstoke.
Yes.
We briefly lost you there. I don't know what you've been doing on this broadband connection, watching lots of online Netflix perhaps, or BBC iPlayer, but it gave up for a moment there, but it's back. We were asking you then a little bit about the types of duties you've been asked to do during a house sit, and have you ever in fact been paid for any of those duties, or is it all a quid pro quo arrangement for the accommodation?
It is normally quid pro quo, but we have twice been paid. Somebody twice has just offered us a bit of money at the end. Well, kind of given us a gift more than
Yes, it's more of a gift
payment.
than anything else.
Very kindly, just,
Right.
So that was very lovely, and completely unexpected as well, because as I said, we don't expect to be paid for this at all. It's, a straight swap. And mainly, we mainly deal with pets when we're house sitting. Our kind of area is a lot to do with animals. So we've had everything from just looking after a single cat to a small holding. We had one in the Cotswolds where we were looking after a flock of sheep, 3 chickens and 2 donkeys. So, it's a lot of animal based with us, and also just security of having somebody in the house.
Yes.
Us working online, it means we are in, a lot of the time, although we do obviously go out and about and explore, but the security is obviously a big factor as well.
So, Jenny, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your background in animals. I believe that previously you were a vet nurse. So, do you still? Does that given you the link to keep working with animals and actually do this almost for fun now?
It has, yes. I have a degree in animal science, and I was working as a veterinary nursing assistant while I did that degree. So I have a lot of experience with animals. Everything from goldfish to horses to cattle. So I've got quite a broad experience, which is great. My career ended up going in a bit of a different direction, but this means that now that we're traveling, it means I get to spend loads of time with animals, which is just absolutely wonderful. And I think that's helped us get a lot of house sits as well as having that experience.
Right, absolutely. So I think it goes back to Marianne's point about how you build trust, accreditation, and all of those things. And I think actually that's one of the keys. Lamia recently was writing on LinkedIn about the 3 keys to unlocking what we call the sharing economy. So the sharing economy is quite broad. We often think of it in terms of sharing your home through something like Airbnb, or a specialist house sitting agency, through sharing a car through something like Zipcar, or a taxi ride through Uber. So there's some of these very cool startup companies where we can actually pool our resources and cut down some of the economic costs involved in doing things where maybe that resource otherwise would go to waste. Lamia, I just wanted you to sort of comment then. You wrote that interesting article. You can see it on Lamia's LinkedIn profile. But what are your thoughts then on where house sitting fits into this broader sharing economy?
I think house sitting is the not the final frontier exactly, but it really is kind of pushing the boundaries somewhat, because when you ask a stranger to come into your home, a place where normally it's your sanctuary from the world, to invite someone that you don't know to come and look after everything as you would, I think is a big step. And so I really think it's not only a brave step, but actually it really shows collaboration in its truest form. And I think all the points made earlier about communication, about building that trust profile, communicating all the benefits of having you as a sitter. Why is it important that you can bring something special to this particular house sit? What experience do you have? What knowledge do you have? These things are vital for a homeowner to understand. Marianne made a very good point about focusing on the profile as you register. That's so important. And Paul's point about the communications, really, you cannot communicate enough before the house sit, during the house sit, and certainly afterwards, making sure that the expectations were met as far as possible. So I think it is truly a form of pure collaborative consumption.
Great. And talking about collaborative consumption, I've got a question and I'm going to ask you all to answer it. So there we go. This is from Janet Windsor. And Janet is thinking about doing a long-term house sit for 6 months. And she thinks that she's going to do a 6-month stint in France. So I'd just like some thoughts from Paul, from Lamia, and from Marianne about the key things that Janet should do in planning her house sit and thinking about being away from home for such a long time. Maybe start with you, Paul.
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, the first thing is she's got to decide what she wants to do with her own home and her own property. What's she going to do? Is she going to sell up, or is she going to have somebody to look after her own property, or or make arrangements to make her own property and her own possessions secure? So that's the first thing. The next thing is then to talk to the prospective house sitters and work out what her duties are, and also what arrangements they want to make. One of the things we haven't talked about on the call so far is some house sitters and house owners allow people to use their cars. So again, that brings into the area of car insurance, which people need to look at. So it's that to me would be the first start point. Is what are you going to do with your own property, your own possessions, and then secondly, what does the house owner that you're going to want you to do? Yes, so that's what I would advise.
Thanks for that, Paul. And actually, I think that feeds into another question that we've had from Dee. So Dee has been asking, really, as well as our own insurance, so as a home owner or as a home sitter, should there be, like in the example you mentioned with a car, a situation when other possessions start getting shared? And Dee's question is, should the house sitter discuss insurance up front with the homeowner? So should the two parties actually get talking about these sorts of issues between them?
Absolutely. Yes, I think so. Because the trouble is, if it's not discussed, then there'll be misunderstanding between the two parties. But also, there could then also be problems with the insurer or the insurance broker if they're not aware of the circumstances. So yes, absolutely.
Right, and we'll go to Marianne there. So Marianne, what we have here is a lady called Janet, and she is planning to do a 6-month house sit in France.
Yes.
Other than the obvious tourist tips, you may wish to give us a couple. How do you recommend that Janet makes the best of her 6 months in France?
How do I recommend that Janet
makes the best, so she profits from her 6 months in France?
Where will she be?
In the south. She will be in the south, Languedoc.
In the south, so there is much to do. I think that there is something very important that we could speak about tonight, especially because we were speaking about sharing economy. Visit France by harnessing the power of sharing economy, and you will see it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
House sitting is a bit like house exchange. It's very interesting for accommodation. But if you want to meet some locals, there are plenty of very interesting websites where you can find solutions, for instance, to eat at locals. You have perhaps you know them. We have also put a link on our website, but I am sure that Lamia knows them very well because she was right in the process of sharing when she invited me here tonight. So you have, for instance, websites like Cookening or Eat With, where you can eat at locals.
Yeah.
That is seeing a different part of the country. You can use, you can share cars. You can even visit different towns by connecting a group. Do you know the greeters? Like to greet in English, the greeters.org, I think. They are inhabitants, locals, and they are usually passionate people. And just for the pleasure and for free, they will show you around in their town, and you will see it in a different way.
Perfect.
So use the sharing economy.
Absolutely. And I think what Marianne said there, it brings up a point that's come up again and again in the other 2 webinars which we've done. One of these real benefits of house sitting is actually that you live like a local. So living like a local, I can see heads nodding, seems to be one of the benefits. Lamia, I believe you've actually done some house sitting in France yourself, haven't you?
Oh, yes, I've been very lucky, actually. My last house sit in France was in Paris, which oh, yes, it was gorgeous. Actually, it was delicious. That's what it was. It was delicious. I think I ate my way from Calais all the way to, the top of the Eiffel Tower. Mais oui.
So, any tips from that? What did you learn?
Well, I was very lucky in that our homeowners introduced us to their favorite local patisserie and their charcuterie, a place that I wouldn't necessarily know how to get to. But they gave me a list, and they also told me where the best views were, which park I should go to. And actually, not just which park, but which park bench to sit on for the best view. It was fabulous, really, a wonderful treat, living exactly as they would, like a local in their neighborhood. It was lovely. Right.
And then Florian, I believe that you and Jenny are in sunny Basingstoke at the moment, in Berkshire. I think. What can we say about Basingstoke? It's near London. How are you living like a local and making the best of that experience?
Well, actually, that comes back to what I said before about arriving a day early, because it's really great when you meet the homeowner, because not only will you go through stuff like insurance, but they'll also generally show you around, particularly if there's a dog involved, because they'll want to show you the route that you take your dog for a walk.
Right.
But you get, I think, in the first day that we were here, I think we met just about all the neighbors.
Yes.
Every single one of the neighbors, they're all friendly, all helpful. And they all come by and get in touch and tell us about local events and what's going on. And it's actually surprisingly easy to get informed from what's in the area.
And are you enjoying the great British cuisine?
We have fresh eggs every morning at the moment because we're looking after some chickens.
I was going to say the great British weather at the moment.
We're actually in the countryside. It's quite rural where we are, but it's a lovely little village.
Very kind of idyllic scenery, yes.
Yeah, it's a really picturesque, beautiful little village, so yes.
Great. And then back to Paul. Has this experience made you think about house sitting yourself? Are you?
Yeah, I've been writing down the websites, and I've certainly got some friends who are who engage in house sitting, and one of our closest friends has just come back from Charleston in America, having done it. Certainly, I see this as a burgeoning, developing area as people start to look to actually find different ways of spending time and also alternative ways of actually living. And we certainly see these sorts of trends as insurers as ones that we need to embrace and encourage and support. But have I done it myself? No, I haven't actually done it myself, but we've got some very close friends who are very, very keen house sitters. At the moment, our travel is still very much with backpack and rucksack and traveling and more exotic places at the moment. But I'm sure that house sitting days will come.
So, Paul, we've mentioned the sharing economy. I mean, it sounds like you're very clued up on it, but do you think that this is actually something that is a little bit disruptive to the traditional way of doing things? And do you think that the insurance companies are ready yet for all these new models of sharing possessions and time?
Well, I think the insurance industry gets a bit of a bad press, actually, because people assume that insurers are in suits and don't really move with the times. The great thing about insurance is we have to reflect what's happening in the economy, and we also have to reflect what's happening in the world. So we do insure smart cars. We do insure car sharing arrangements. So, for example, there's a number of cities now where there are car sharing in place, and insurers respond to that by insuring the cars. I think my message is insurers are very keen to actually support trends in the economy and trends that happen in people's lifestyles and habits. Sometimes people make an assumption that insurers won't. My message is insurers will, as long as they understand the risk. That's what it's about. We need to understand what's happening. If we can understand the risk, then we can work with insurance brokers or insurers themselves and work through what needs to be handled. So yeah, I think we are moving very much with the times.
Great. And just a bit of a follow-up question from you that's coming from one of our audience members, Paul, on car insurance, just saying that their impression is being that that's quite different in different countries. So, for instance, in Australia, and I remember this when I went to Australia, and also in Spain, often the cars are insured with any number of drivers. There's no worries, as they might say. But then in the UK, there's a limited number of drivers or a named driver often. So what tips would you give people looking to either allow people to use their car or be able to get on and use somebody else's car?
Sure. Well, first thing is certainly make sure you've got the appropriate driving licenses, an international driving license or driving license from your own country. So you've got that detail and you know your driving record. And then for car insurance, for house sitters, you really do need to talk to the homeowner and the owner of the vehicle, so that they then go through their insurance company. Trying to get insurance as a house sitter on someone else's car is not the best route. The route to go through is with the homeowner, but then be open and absolutely transparent about your driving record.
Yeah. So, Florian and Jenny, do you use a car when you go to these different places?
We did. When we started in the UK, we actually had our own car, so it was quite easy.
Right.
And because we went over to Europe for the summer, we sold it before we left. So we've never actually had to use anybody else's car yet or anything like that. So we haven't come across that situation.
We have been offered other people's car, but in most cases it's it's one of those things that's actually financially cheaper as well. Rather than paying for fuel, it's just to walk if it's within distance. So we usually end up walking to wherever we need.
Great. And how are all your other travel costs? Have you spent quite a lot of money going between these different places, or have you found economic ways of doing it?
Yeah, we try and kind of be quite clever with it. So we'll try and do house sits that are quite close to each other, so we're not going suddenly from Scotland to the south of France and then over to, I don't know, Austria or somewhere. So if you try and do it kind of one after the other, and there's lots of travel deals you can get, like in the UK for with train companies and things, you can get a 2 together rail card. So if you're traveling together, you get a third off rail. And in Germany, you have things
a new thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all sorts of cheap ways to travel. If you look into it, then it's great. It can be, if you're sensible.
If you do get guidebooks about the country you're going into, very often there'll be sections on there about travel tips, and we tend to kind of look either in books or online about those, and there is an awful lot of good information out there for it. So it really depends the country you're in.
Great. And if we head back to Lamia now at House Sit Match, Lamia, you said that there was a promotion available to people this evening wanting to get involved and go on House Sit Match.
Absolutely, yes. If you want to join a network immediately, then think nothing of it. Join House Sit Match. We have an offer that gives you 20% off. That's if you subscribe from tonight all the way through to Friday at midnight. So the offer is webinar-20, and it gives you 20% off. I'll be writing it in the questions chat.
Right, so to say that again, that's webinar-20, and that will get you some money off House Sit Match. And what's the quickest way to go on Nomador if we go to Marianne? If that was your preference, you're looking at France. What's the easiest way to register?
By the easiest way, you have both ways to register, either discovery option or subscription. Right. But you can start by the discovery option if you just want to try and test. The platform was launched in February, and we are over 5,000 members now. It's working well, and we have a lot of new developments to come. But the easiest way, if you want to test it, is try the discovery option. And you will see, and you will test.
Great. And what Lamia and Marianne, what are the most exciting places advertised on your site right now? Where could I go if I log on? Where could you send off Florian and Jenny on their next adventure?
Oh, well, if they were feeling very brave, then I would suggest going to Melbourne for Christmas. There's a wonderful, wonderful house sit there with just a couple of dogs to care for. But it's a wonderful estate, and there's a vineyard and everything. Or, of course, you could go further south in Europe, maybe find somewhere in Malaga. We have a lovely place with a private beach, so you can go there. I'll be sending you links.
All right, Marianne, what are the most exciting places that you can offer us?
One makes me dream. One makes me dream every time I look at it, and I think it's still available. It's in Greece, right on the place where the film Zorba the Greek was shot.
Ah.
And it's a long-term assignment. We were speaking about long-term assignments. We also have we were speaking about France, so we have a 2-month Christmas in Provence, and which is in a very nice place, and also something in Mayotte, which is another part of France. France is not all about Paris or about what we call the Hexagon. And Mayotte is an island in the Indian Ocean, and it seems very nice too.
Right, yes. So, Florian and Jenny, tempted by any of that?
Tempted by all of them, actually.
Yes.
So where are you? Where are your plans now? What does the next 12 months look like for you?
It's spontaneous, really. I mean, what we tend to do is we find, if we can, one house sit in advance. But sometimes it's absolutely great because we get offers through places like House Sit Match as well from others, and invites to become their house sitters. And for example, in the case of Luxembourg, we never even thought of Luxembourg. Rather, somebody contacted us. So I kind of like the not planning stage of it, because it's always exciting to see where you end up.
Great. Okay. So I think to bring this together now, we have from Paul the importance of communication, thinking about insurance, and actually having that honest dialogue with your insurer, to not be afraid to tell them, in fact, that you're doing something slightly different, that maybe you're going away for more than 30 days, because actually your insurer is likely to listen to you and respond positively. And even if there is a problem with that particular policy, there is always the opportunity then to speak to an insurance broker, and you might be surprised they might be able to find the perfect solution for you and even save you money. So that's from Paul from Aviva. Then I think we have some really exciting options from Marianne and Lamia about where we can go on their website. So you can go to nomador.com if you're particularly interested in the French world and getting out from the hexagon and beyond. And then at housesitmatch.com, you can go there now and you can sign up and register using the coupon code webinar-20 or webinar-20, and you can effectively discover the website and look at those premium service options, but at a much lower cost. And I think, Lamia, if you just like to sort of help us here, what's your closing message to people tonight who've come on this webinar? What do you want them to think, other than going and sign up on the site?
If you haven't considered house sitting or having house sitters in your home, from what everybody's said tonight, from Paul, from Marianne, from Florian and Jenny, I'd like people to take away the idea that actually it's people like you and me that do this because we want something different, something unusual. We want to make sure our homes are secure, they're populated, our pets are cared for at home safely, where they're comfortable. We also perhaps would discover a different kind of holiday. If we're homeowners or we've been pet owners in our lives, we have experience to share. And actually, it can be such a revelation, as Marianne said, to see a new town, a new city, a new country from that neighborhood perspective. It can be a real revelation and a complete joy. So what I'd say is have a think about it. If you haven't already signed up, then give it a go. You know, for the cost of a small registration, it's not expensive. You can actually discover a whole new world, or go off and have your own holiday and allow someone else to discover your world. It's fun.
Great. And then Florian and Jenny, do you have any final tips for people thinking this might be for me?
Give it a try, I would say.
Yeah, just do it so you won't regret it, because it's wonderful.
Yeah, because we started, when was it, August a year ago, and I don't think any of us has even spent a second looking back. I mean, we love it. We can't imagine stopping doing this.
And you don't have to do it long term. You can just do it as a holiday, like Lamia said as well. It's such a great option. You know, you save on your accommodation costs, which can be huge. So it's just wonderful. It's really great.
Great. And do you write about your experiences anywhere? Do you share them with family, friends, if we're looking to find out more from you?
Well, we're on Twitter. So we have the username /postcards on Twitter. Jenny often writes in there. If you're looking to find out more about us, we do have our own separate little web page, which is twoofushousesitting.com. But we don't really blog about anything. We just kind of write messages on Twitter. But if anybody does have any specific questions they want to ask us, they can always send us a tweet.
Perfect. So to conclude then, thank you very much. We're also going to be blogging ourselves about this, what came up in the webinar. We're going to link links to all the sites. I'd just like to thank all of our panelists. You've all been really good, really animated, and have given us some new insights, and I think new ways of thinking about this that actually stop us, let us embrace this new adventure, but knowing at the same time that we are secure and that we're doing it the right way. So thank you to everybody. We're going to conclude now. Any more questions, you can send them to us at Twitter @HouseSitMatch. Thank you for joining us. And absolutely, house sitting, if you haven't thought about it before, or even if you have and you're ready to go, now's the time to try it.